Yeah? So we're doing chapter 309, page 630. It's the end of volume 1, and it's the discourse is what Maimon is the last Maimon in this volume. Maimon 76. And it's what we call a linchpin chapter. It's a connecting chapter that sums up and connects many different ideas. But let me just give an overview of Ayin Beis to help this process along. Ayin Beis' biggest concern is the issue of the interface. We're dealing with a physical world, a finite world, a world you can add into the equation, a world of arrogance and self-absorption, self-interest. How can you reconcile that with godliness, which is antithetical to all that I just described? So you can go with an approach and say that our connection to God is very minimalistic, a diminished form of godliness as our relationship. But you never can expect to really connect with God. Torah in general, Chassidus specifically, Chassidus Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab is not satisfied with that. When God says, I want you to know me, love me, have a relationship with me, didn't want it just on external levels. It was a profound connection. And the creation of this world is not just a small peripheral thing. It's Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, that God Himself desired to have a dwelling place, a home in this world. And as such, there has to be a way to connect the two. And this is the biggest challenge of all Kabbalah and Chassidus. This is the single question, Hashem Echad. How do you explain this Achdus Hashem? The connection of a world that is so antithetical to godliness with God, without annihilating one or the other, or compromising one or the other. So yeah, you can take an approach that the whole world we have to destroy, and leave room for God. Or the other way around, as I said before, live on the terms of this world, but God is a minimal experience. And the whole point of the interface, the mamutza, Seder Shtalshlus, and everything comes to answer this question. Even that's some concept, the fundamental concept of spheres, there's 10 spheres. So Chassidus explains why there are 10 spheres, because it's a way that we reconcile these two issues. How could there be a world with parameters and still be God's world? So you could say God doesn't have parameters, correct, but it then says that God does chesed, and there's God, how He manifests as Elokim, as judge, and you have the different shvachim, praises, we praise God with different descriptions. So all the Kabbalists, that's what their concern is. How these descriptions, who are they talking to? You're talking to creations? God forbid. You can't be praising creations. You're talking to God. God is beyond names and descriptions. So the answer is the Esser spheres. The 10 spheres are our interface. They're divine instruments, divine, but how God manifests and wishes there should be structure. So now you have suddenly a divine structure. That's called, what we were learning, Esser spheres Agnuzis, is how it arises in God's mind or vision to have a particular structure. Esher spheres Hagluyas, the revealed spheres, is the actual picture. And then we have the instruments. So the examples given are all human examples because God wants us to understand this. That's part of the unity, the interface, is that we should have in our world a logical explanations for these ideas. Now God could also create a world there was no intellect and there was no logic. Then we wouldn't be thinking people. And we wouldn't be wondering about these things. If you, for example, talk to animals, if you interviewed an animal would tell you, I'm here, an elephant, a giraffe, a rhinoceros, whatever, a frog, a flower, a tree. I'm here, here's how I function. I know I wake up in the morning, I take care of my children, I feed, I hunt, I breed, I die, the next generation. Why are you here? I don't know a clue why I'm here. Not only that, an animal does not concern itself. These are an example of keilim. These are the instruments. They do exactly what the Creator put them to do without wavering, but they're not involved in having a relationship with their Creator. They're like the product of the Creator. A human being is the only entity that asks these questions. An animal will never stop doing what it's supposed to be doing. A human being can say, one morning, I'm lazy. I don't know why, I don't want to do this. We think about it. We wonder. We look up to heaven. We want to understand what our purpose is. The reason for it is because we're created with the divine image to create the connection between the two. So we are restless souls and we search. The point being in all of this is that God wants an interface. And the interface is a complicated one because it's not just about a place where we meet. You need to have, like in any engineering, you need to have millions of places to meet because we need to connect everything in existence with that which is beyond. So we have the elaborate Seder Ishtalshalos, cosmic order. It's centered around the 10 spheres. Everything is the 10 spheres as they evolve from one stage to the next. But there are stages. Generally, Atzilus, Bria, Tzir, and Asiya. That is Atzilus Klolos, Bria Klolos. There's many more details. But essentially, it's stages of how these instruments, the divine vision, will manifest, and how we retrace our steps to reconnect to that place. That's the general picture. So Ayin Beis, if I could sum up the whole structure of Ayin Beis, the 1,500 pages, which were also not concluded by the Rebbe Rashab, mind you, he didn't finish it, is essentially goes like this. The beginning of Ayin Beis it starts with Keser, which is beyond structure. Keser is the first interface, he calls it. It's a desire. The desire of an essence to want something. That's the first interface, because if there's no desire, there's no stepping out of his own essence. And to understand desire, which is that interface, the Rebbe Rashab goes into a discussion of I believe it's over 50 chapters, in the structure of existence. The structure of existence is called Eris Pnimim, Keiches Pnimim, Eris Pnimim, Eir Pnimi. That God created everything as a container and an energy. And they fit, tailored to each other perfectly. That's the structure. So step one in the interface, how does this structure that we know in this world connect to the source of the structure? So if we align this whole world with a shadish of Eir HaGvul, we would have a world that's exactly aligned as God wants it to be. But only to the vision of the artist in this structure. So that's the first part of Ayin Beis, deals with this connection. Then comes the next part, Eir HaBlikvul. Eir HaBlikvul is connecting to the artist beyond this piece of art that he created, which is having a relationship even with the parts of God that are beyond the world, transcendence, infinite possibilities. That would be called Eir HaBlikvul. And that is the second part. He explains in the second part of Ayin Beis, which is starts Shavuos Ayin Gimel, that there's Matan Torah and there's the Avos. The Avos before Matan Torah reached to the Sheresh HaGvul, to Sheresh HaNivraim. They were able to figure out how to align existence, the structure, to the source of existence. Matan Torah introduced from Umayla, from above, another dimension, the Eir HaBlikvul. And then went a whole discussion in this whole thing: what is Torah, what is Chochmah, what is that Eir HaBlikvul, and how you. The Eir HaBlikvul generally introduces bittul to the worlds. You see, when you connect the structure to the source of the structure, you're aligning it. That's an internal connection. But bittul, to really understand the haflos ein sof, is only the Eir HaBlikvul, because it's not within your structure. To say God is nature teaches you the beauty of nature, shows you there's a God, teaches you God is a great artist. But if you want to understand the awesomeness of God, that is even beyond the artist, that you need Eir HaBlikvul. That creates a bittul, a much deeper bittul. The first one's also a bittul, but it's a bittul ayesh, more or less. It's saying, I see beauty, I see God as awesome from the nature of the world, the design of the world. The second one teaches you an awesomeness that's beyond existence, beyond me. You could thank God. Look, thank you for Meida Ani Lefanecha. And you say all the bichas hashachar, all the morning blessings, for giving you health, and giving you breathing, and giving you wisdom, and giving you eyes to see, and all the blessings we say. That's thanking God for the structure, which is also awesome. It's also a miracle. Life is a miracle. But it's a miracle within something was containable. The God that is beyond this structure, that's our connection through the Eir HaBlikvul. That's like Matan Torah. And there was a long discussion about HaChachma and Chachmas Timah, serve as these interfaces. Then comes the next section, where he goes into, which is where we began a few chapters back, chapter 305. And after explaining Eretz and keilim and their imbalance and how you construct it and how you create a balanced structure, he now goes into the pasuk we say in Ashrei, this is now a whole new section, and here the focus is on, he's going to introduce, and remember is a common theme, constantly uses these words, snasus, seremumos, keser. So what's Arimcha Keilim Melech? There's two interpretations he explains. One is Mamayl Lamata, one is Mamat Lamayl. Mamayl Lamata is Teda. That you bring Arimimcha, Reimamus, into Elikai HaMelech, which is Elikai Loshen Kayach, and Melech Malchus, which is the lowest level, which creates the worlds. And the second interpretation is Tefillah, that you raise Elikai HaMelech to Arimimcha. You elevate Elikai HaMelech to Arimimcha. Those are two interpretations which are going to be a foundation of, I would say, next 60, 70 pages. Tefillah and Teda. Two ways that the interface now work. How do you connect Bligvul and Gvul? Like I said, Eira Bligvul and Eira Gvul. Tefillah is from the bottom up, Teda is from the top down. Ayin Beis actually, there's more focus on Teda than on Tefillah, because it's more about his slapshus and bringing it into existence, rather than going out of existence. But both are necessary. And then after doing a whole arichas with Tefillah, he goes back to Teda, and then goes to the third level, which is how do you reach Atzmus? Not just Eira Bligvul, Atzmus, and that's through the Bidur Hayesh. See, the first things I just spoke about was the structure, you align the structure Gvul to Eir HaGvul, Sheirish HaGvul, as is Firis HaGnuzis. The second thing is you align yourself to the Bligvul, that's Eir HaBligvul, but then there's Atzmus, and that's through the Haficha, the transformation of darkness into light, which is a result ultimately of Teda and Tefillah. Then comes the third volume, and this is where he finishes this. When he finishes Tefillah, he goes now back to Teda and starts with Ner Mitzvah Teda Er, and Derech Chaim Techachas Musar. And these are the three things: Ner Mitzvah, Teda Er, and Derech Chaim. And the Hemshech is the middle of that. At the end of Ner Mitzvah is where the Hemshech ends. He doesn't finish it. But the point is,
lower than the oil of liquid.
Yeah, they're one step lower, because they're already Esespheres in vision. So essentially, that's the structure of Ayin Beis. Where we are right now, in Shin Tes 309, is the beginning of the Arimimcha Elikai HaMelech section, and he's really discussing Elikai HaMelech, and he's trying to discuss how you connect the lower levels to the higher levels. So this chapter, Shin Tes, which we'll learn, is like somewhat of a, as I said, it's a key chapter because it's a bridge. It's an interface within the interface. It's a bridge between all the earlier chapters and what he's going to continue on going. So, as an introduction to Shin Tes, what have we learned here? We've basically learned the following: that there's the level of Melech, Elikai HaMelech. Elikai is Loshen Kayach. Okay, Kayach is a faculty. It's already a lower level than, let's say, Oyer and Chayas. We're going to learn Oyer, Chayas, Kayach, and then there's a level which is going to go even lower. Is going to be Malchus. Malchus is going to be compared to a shem, to a name, or to a levush, a garment. Malchus is the lowest level of Atzilus. It's the lowest of the 10 spheres, and it becomes the king, the leader of the next worlds. So it creates the worlds. Ein melech b'layam, a melech, as he explained, is on strangers. Meichin, you could have meichin by yourself. You could also have midas with yourself. You could have midas, emotions, with another human being that's close to you, relatives, friends, children. Malchus, melech, is specifically a nation. You're not a melech over your family, over yourself. A melech is over something else. So Malchus is, as he explains, is the creation of worlds outside of itself. And the question is, how do you connect the Elikai HaMelech, Kayach, and Malchus, and Shem and Levush to the source? So in discussing this, he began to hold this difference between Shem and Oyer. So generally, the name of God and the reflection of God are one. But more specifically, Shem doesn't reveal, and Oyer reveals. Oyer is always a reflection of its source. Even in its most diminished state, it has a transcendent quality. Shem, on the other hand, is connected to the source, as he explained. We're not talking about peripheral names or incidental names. It's not hiskomim. A name is the name. Adam HaRishon gave names to the creatures because he saw their source. But the name itself doesn't. When you see a sheir, when you see the name sheir, it doesn't tell you what an ox is like. Or Adam, for that matter, and so on. And he discussed it. Eir tells you that there's a source. Eir HaShemesh, it's a sun. Eir HaLevana is a moon. Eir HaNeir is a flame. Eir HaYem, etc. Compared to Atzmus, which is beyond even energy and Eir, even Eir is a shem. Generally speaking.
When you say shem, you mean the name of the object, or the name of the name that was named?
Both. He spoke of the shem amin and shem hapratim. They both are not reveal. No, they both, like you said, you can call somebody and reveal his etzem, but they don't reveal.
He said because shem does reveal that it's an ox.
He said, no, only when you see a sheir, you don't know what an ox is like. When someone told you there's a sheir, what would you know if you never saw an ox? Adam had the chachma to know that it reflects the sheir shemekov, but the personality, a sunlight. If I said to you sun and you never saw a sun, you have no clue. If I showed you sunlight, I said this is it, say, oh, that's the sun. It gives off light. I mean, but it's spells it out in different ways. Now, compared to Atzmus, even Eir is like shem, because Atzmus loizeh ikar. The primary role of Atzmus is not to create and not to give off energy. But then, on the other hand, Eir, because of its bittul, this I'm going to elaborate soon, because of its bittul, it reflects even the parts of Atzmus that Eir can't reveal. It reveals even Atzmus that's beyond Eir. So Eir has in it this interesting mix. In sense, besides Atzmus, nothing except Atzmus, everything so-called is distant. But Eir, because of its utter bittul and doesn't have anything of its own, is even like an Eved that can tell you intelligent ideas that are heard from the king, and you say, do you understand what he said? No, but I'm telling you what he said. It's like the bittul of it allows it to be an agent of things that are beyond itself. Sie verstellt nicht. Okay, no, so the point is, Atzmus will sich megala sein. He wants to reveal himself. That's the key. Atzmus wants to reveal himself. Since he wants to reveal himself, right. So Berotzen, his lashon is like, I'll point out, yeah, exactly. Look on the top of page Tofresh Chof Hei. I'll just read it because it's very, very Tofresh Chof Hei. You got it?
Yeah.
No. The top lines.
Okay.
She says, "Well, kena era gamshud b'chinas dreigs betzim ena megala kol ha'atzmus." One second, hold on. Or makom mal can be in yana had the megala shu b'chinas moyer. 1 second. But now the malkam acher. Okay, so at least it reveals, but it does reveal. Does not conceal; it reveals. If it reveals everything or not is another story. Let's even, to argument's sake, doesn't reveal most of Atzmus, because most of Atzmus is not in the gather of Eir. But what it does do, it does reveal. Eir is a revealer. Shem is not a revealer. Hold on, 1 second. Then he says, the liyasha Eir mein amoyer, being that Eir is mein amoyer, yeshlemesh yesh by kol masha ba'atzmus. Yeshlemesh, that has everything in Atzmus. So kamosh yesh by Eir keichem hamahav ha'isavus. Okay, this is a critical line. It means, in other words, the following. To say that God is bound by light, like sun, must give off light. That's its mission. It was created, like the Chumash says, l'choyer ala aretz. A sun does not have anything. I mean, it has different elements within its light, and it can warm, and has infrared, and has sun flares. But its primary objective is to give off light. And you don't say a sun, absolutely, that is the ikar. The primary role of the shemesh. Eir of Atzmus, you can't make such a statement because God doesn't have a nature. He's not compelled to do anything. And He's not defined by light, by energy. One of the ways we know this is, by the way, because there's a yesh. The fact that He created a yesh shows you that He's not defined by Eir. I'll get back to that in a minute. But there is Eir. Why is there Eir then? No one else put it there. It's because God did want to reveal Himself. And this is the way He reveals Himself. You could always say, why didn't He reveal Himself a different way? Call it cheshach, call it elephants, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the way you. So what we call Eir, even Eir HaKol Batzmusei, which we say is Kadmin Kekadmusei. Even that is Beratzen, which is why we say it's Ke'ilu Kodmo HaHeder. You can't call it Kodmo. Kodmo HaHeder means that there was a time, it was preceded by a time that it was not. So this table is Kodmo HaHeder. There was a time this table did not exist. I don't just mean physical time, I mean also conceptually. There was a time a tree that you know in the forest didn't grow. It wasn't planted yet. It didn't grow yet. But then there are things that are ain't saved because God wants them to be there. So Eir, you can't say Eir began at a certain point. But on the other hand, Eir is only a reflection of its source. So imagine an infinite, a pole that's infinitely tall. It will cast an infinite shadow. But you're never going to say the shadow is the cause of the pole. You're going to say the pole is the cause of the shadow. So you would say, and this you would say, Ke'ein Kodmo HaHeder. Meaning it's only like as if it preceded by not being there because it's not its own source. That's an expression used. So Eir is in that category. Eir has an additional element here. It's not that just God wants it to be there. Its nature is bittul. That's the key of all things in Eir. Its whole personality is not itself. That's why it can reveal its source and reveal even things that it itself doesn't have, because it doesn't have a self. You and I, a keilim, cannot reveal the part of Atzmus that is not connected to keilim, because it's not a revealing force. It's a creature. It's a structure. Chesed tells you I'm Chesed. It can't tell you that I'm not Chesed or I have things that are not Chesed. Yeah, it has it mitzad Atzmus because Atzmus is in everything. But it tells you this is what I am. And al pi halacha, that's how it is. That's why there's halachic distinctions. Shiyurim, we talked about structure. It's this and it's not that. Matzah is not chometz. And it's a isur d'haraisa if you try to... I could say in Atzmus, what do you mean? Is there a difference between matzah and chometz and Atzmus? Atzmus is not bound, but he chose to be bound, and this is reflecting this choice called matzah, this called chometz. Shabbos is not Yemei Achel. Yom Kippur is not Tisha B'Av. Yom Kippur is not any other day in the year. You know, in other words, there's clear distinctions. Eir, on the other hand, because of its bittul, and has no personality. You ask Eir, what's your personality? Whatever my source tells me to do, that's what I do. I mean, so to speak, it can't even speak a language like that, but in Indian, that's all it does. So Eir, all its Indian is Megala. What is it Megala? Its source. Are you the source? No, I'm a Gili, like he says. I'm Eir. Have you always been here? I'm only here because God wants me to be here. But Atzmus wants to be Nizgala. Eir is his tool of how he's Nizgala to a Mitzias Nimtza. You could say, so why does God need Eir? Why doesn't he just be Megala himself? That's Eir. That's exactly what it means. That's the word for Eir. If let's put it, take away Eir, you have the Mitzias built in Mitzias Nimtza of Atzmus, which means an Atzmus we can't even relate to. Then it's like an Atzmus that basically, if God didn't give Teira Eir to us, yeah, of course he exists. But you and I would never be able to get there. Because we are a Mitzias Nimtza. And there's no way for us to connect without some Gili. Now God could of course created the world a completely different way with different type of logic or no logic. We're talking about, this Chassidus constantly says, the fact that God created this way means this is the way it has to be. And because it's this way, I want to just, give me this blue sefer right here. I just found something, some tzaddik, which I thought is a very good line, excellent. Because it's like a key line. I always looked for it, and then recently I found it. So it's a very interesting line that... now, the question is, do I can find it now quickly? Yeah. You'd know but also because we have seichel. Remember, animals don't know. Or animals know what they know. But that's because seichel, that is also gili. I'm going to talk about seichel itself as a gili. That God gave us, seichel is Eir, basically. As I mentioned, I keep saying yesterday, this is yesterday, for the record. When you go into walk in a room that's a dark room, the Rebbe gives this example very often. Everything's there, there's a table, chair, everything. But the only thing you can't see it. So when you put on a light, it's a beautiful way of understanding Eir and stuff. You put on a light, what happens? Nothing. Nothing changes. I'm not talking now on the level of subatomic, where the light gives off energy. I'm not talking about that. Nothing changes from our perspective. The only thing that changes, you can see. This is a table. Oh, I sit by a table. These are steps. I walk down steps. Now this can be a matter of life and death. If you don't see it, you can fall down the steps, God forbid. If you don't know what path to walk on, you can walk the path of, snakes and right, exactly. So light doesn't change anything, but it reveals. And as such it has that power. Seichel is essentially light. It's a form of light. It's light within through wisdom. But it's the light that God gave us, that before you walk down a street, think about where you're walking. Someone offers you a candy. Don't just grab it. If you're run by emotions, if your life is run completely by impulse, you can get yourself into very deep trouble. The mind is a light. It shines light. Now if you think, does the mind create? No. But the mind is a made a derech. It's like a flashlight. It's like the beam of a headlights in a dark road.
The mind does create things.
I'm talking about this aspect of the mind, clarity, analysis. Obviously, the mind is not complete, not pure eir. The mind has its seer. But chachma and wisdom is eir ein sof, the first place. That's why it says hulavadik in Tanya Perek Lamed Hey that he brings often here. That chachma is the gili of hulavadik ein zulosei, because seichel brings you to there. Of course, you could use seichel to destroy people too. Seichel is not necessarily kedusha. Seichel can be used hepa. But point is, seichel in its purest form is a form of illuminating. It's an illumination. It teaches you things. Without seichel, you don't know what should be used for what. Anyway, I'm just giving an example. The point I'm making here is that eir is the way God reveals Himself, and at the end of the day, because of its bittul, it reveals kol ha'atzmos, and it's not a stira because it doesn't have personality. And that's why it's Kadam Kikadmuse because of its bittul. Basically, bittul kanish bottle veren. The Lashon Rabbeinu. The Rebbe said that once. Bittul kanish bottle veren.
This is not only the Gabi Atzmus. Every time that you're saying the where is Megala, the Kol Ha'atzmus is in everything, and Eresh Shemesh also.
No. The Shemesh, first of all, Shemesh is limited in what it has. So what do you mean?
No, it's Megala, the everything that the Shemesh is having.
Yeah, no. He's correct. That everything that the Shemesh brings to this world travels through. Yeah, you could say that. The only difference, however, is the major distinction. Yeah, absolutely. Eir in general is that. That's correct. I mean, the question could be, using the example of the artist. When an artist chooses one piece of way of making art, does this one way of his piece of art include all his possibilities? In truth is, probably in some way it does, because his whole personality goes into it. But we wouldn't be able to necessarily recognize it. With Atzmus, it's that way not because it has to be that way, because he wants it to be that way. In Inyan, you could say that if God didn't want Himself to be reflected, parts of Him in Eir, I don't care how bottle Eir is, He doesn't want it, that's not going to be there. It's like the Melech doesn't want the Evet to carry this. But He did want. That's the key. So it's not like it's mukhrach, but the bottom line is because of Eir Bittul. So you can ask 1 second, if Eir is so bottle, why doesn't it carry everything from Atzmus if Atzmus doesn't want?
It does carry.
Because that's the whole point of Bittul. Huh?
It does carry.
It does, but is it because of its Bittul or is it because Atzmus is Ratzon Atzmus? But it's Tali Zebezeh in a way, because first of all, Ratzon Atzmus, once it's bottle, it makes sense. If it wasn't bottle, it wouldn't make sense. How could a thing with a certain agenda carry all the agendas, so to speak? Like it makes a lot more sense that a malach, EF shel malach lasis shtei shlichus. Why? Because this is its role, and that's it. It's not a role, it's not something else. A table is not a chair. And that's it. That's the way structure of existence is. But there's another aspect that you could say also, because of its bittul, it's also bottled to everything that Atzmus has, and therefore it carries it. It's Haba Hatalia. It obviously all starts with the Ratzon Atzmus. Because Eir doesn't make the choice that it's bittul. It's Mehus's bittul. Huh?
When you say carries it, it doesn't mean legality.
It means both. Actually, it says sometimes that it carries the power of Isavas Hayesh, and it's Megala the Keich Yesh as well. It does both. Eir carries and Megala. That's says Befedish many places.
Oh yeah, is keilim.
Yeah. Okay, let's now learn inside. I was going to find this. I don't know if I can find that. See, I'm not going to go over it.
Your eyes are closed. Right? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, here's the lashon. Listen to this. This is Samach Tzedek, which I think is. I'm almost sure it's based on the Alter Rebbe. She says like this: Just I'm reading just a few. It's page Pehei 85 in Eidat Teira in Yonim. So here's the lashon. Okay. ובאמס שיש להובר מהכן ימצא בכינס יסavas יוד keilim אלו מאין סייב ברוך הוא הפושט בתכלס הפשיטס ולאו מכל אין מידס כלל. In other words, you have to understand, where did this come from, this whole 10 spheres? When God doesn't have any midas. And why dafka 10 and not 11? It could have been many spheres, different spheres, because God is not bound by any of these midas, by these attributes. Nevertheless, he emanated Dafka and created Dafka's 10 spheres.
Where do we know that?
That's because it says in Zayar. And Psukim, there's even Psukim. Yeah. What's it? Pratim. He could have created and emanated spheres that are higher than Chochmah. The answer is that for sure he could have. What's it? Hayachal v'yachal. Hayachal v'yachal.
Can't think you can.
Yeah. Elishev bochar b'atzilis as spheres dafka kadesha oz yeh ilmis kasher hem ata kamesha kasur makamach. But he chose to make as spheres in order that it should be the worlds as the way they are right now. Which of course you could ask, why do the worlds have to be the way they are now? But that's already you're getting into something we can never answer. You have to just say it's like this, that the worlds the way they are now are not random. They definitely reflect a plan, and therefore a plan that goes all the way up to the source. That means that in some way in Atzmos, Dafka, a world like ours, with the Seichel in it, and the Esespheres reflect something Atzmosdik, though he's not bound by it, and so on. So it's two things. It's a reflection of what he wants, and therefore a reflection of who he is, and at the same time it is what it is. So, and I just wanted to read that. So let's go back now to Shinta. So I was saying Eir. Okay. So then, in contrast to Eir, there's shem. Shem does not reveal. So at the end of the day, Eir and shem are not the same, even though there's a certain element of it. The bottom line is, when someone asks the question, does Eir reveal what Atzmus is? The answer has to be yes or no. Be'etzem, it doesn't. Why? Because Eir is only Eir. It doesn't reveal, for example, the Yesh. But because of its bittul, it reveals even that part. But if you only had Eir, if we didn't have Tachtenim, Yesh, you would never know parts of Atzmus. Even Eir couldn't tell it to you because you wouldn't know to ask. Once we see a Yesh, so it's Mechayev, it compels us to say, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that Atzmus is a Yesh Amiti, She'en Le'il V'Siba, that he has no source. From Eir you'll never know that, because Eir has a source. Eir tells you I have a source. So Eir can't reveal to you something that doesn't have a source. But once you see a Yesh, Eir reveals to you. So in other words, now you see a Yesh that is like existence like ours, and we say, Ani v'af se'ed. Me and nothing else. I have no source. The Alter Rebbe is Mechadish, that the fact that you feel you have no source means you come from a place that has no source. So the fact that we're that way is we know from the Yesh. But Eir has to be Megalatas, because you have to learn it in Tanya. So you have to think about it, even to think about it. In other words, when you look at a Yesh, the Yesh is just but it doesn't tell you to think about it. Like I said before about animals. Animals don't think about Atzmus Ein Le'il V'Siba. They just exist, and that's it.
But you need to turn on the light.
Yeah, you need to turn on the light, which is essentially learning Torah, having a discussion. That's called revelation. And be mizbein on it, thinking about it. Our discussion right now. Right. But Yesh tells you to, as the Eir, tell me some more. It would be almost like this. It's like an artist makes a painting. Fine. I look at the painting, so I know that he has art. Then, for some reason in the art, I see some type of hint that he must, like I see something that he put into the piece of art, that means that he has some secret. So then I ask the Eir, can you tell me? The Eir will tell you, yes, there's more about him that you don't know about. That's essentially the way it works. I don't mean as the Eir, I mean to say, you start thinking. Yeah, you start thinking about it, and then you look and you find a sefer. Yeah, Atzmus has a koyach that we weren't aware of. I mean, in a beautiful way, you can apply this to psychological model. We talked about this, the three. Very simple. You have potential. You don't know all your potential. I don't know all my potential. How do we know how are we aware of our potential? Through either by mistake. You do something, you suddenly realize you can do it. Yeah. Or somebody who knows you well says, I think you'd be good at this. A coach type of thing. Many different ways. The bottom line is, Eir is Megali, even that which it itself is not. It's not that the Eir is the talent. The Eir is just telling you. And then, when someone makes you aware of it, that's called your Megalit. And once you Megalit, you can do something with it. If you don't have Eir, it remains a locked up talent. So this is all a process of, in other words, awareness is critical, but it's not the creator of it. It's only the awareness of something that's there already. And shem, on the other hand, as it will explain, which is going to be the level of malchus, is a whole different thing. Shem is a concealer.
Because the Eir is the awareness, but it's not the creator.
No. But it carries, because of its awareness, it also carries, it's also an agent of creating, of the power of creation, goes through Eir. That's what he says. Keichei savus also comes through Eir. Eir basically becomes the messenger of everything. It carries everything. Yeah, yes, it is. It is. It's what the lashon is. Eir is me'ein hamoyer. I guess okay. Eir me'ein hamoyer. That's why it has keichei savus, but it has to be through Eir mislabish keilim that makes the savus, because Eir can't create. Yeah, you can't create. Eir is like, think of it like the energy of the artist without the paintbrush. What could he do with it? But a paintbrush without the energy of the artist is a dead nothing. It's just an instrument. In the hands of someone else, nothing will happen with it. That's how Eir is. Iyu v'chayu echad. That's a Eir hamislabish and keilim, and through that they create. We're going to learn this now.
He didn't need it in that way.
He needed it because he wants, and Savu Kodesh Baruch Hu did it b'tachtenim. He didn't need like we need it. In other words, he's like, we don't eat food, you're dead. It's not that way. Remember, God is not a structured entity, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have desire. He has desire and he wants something. Need is a whole different discussion. What he needs, or doesn't need. He chose to need it, if you want to put it that way.
He doesn't have the desire. This is also a Gilei L'Tzeidim.
Yeah, but since it's Mesiachas to Atzmus, Savukos Baruch Hu, meaning to say that something about Atzmus is expressed in that. It's an Atzmusdik desire. It's not it's fundamentally connected to him. The need you don't use the word need up there, but fundamentally connected. When we actually make a dirah b'tachtenim, it's not optional. It's not like you do it, great. If not, I have a party to go to. So this is his party. This is the.
Basically, you see from the Tachtenim that he's a very structured entity.
You also see that he's not, because you see the yesh she'en le'il v'siba. You see a lot of things. You don't just see structure. You see beyond structure too. This is already by modern talk. Different things you see. He said before. Remember, he said in the last chapter. Where we're up to now is in chapter 308, and I'm going to go now to 309. In chapter 308, he spoke about chayas. He says the chayas hanefesh reveals many things. It reveals that there's a source of life that's coming into you, the nefesh. It reveals that source is higher than just being a source of life. It's a chay be'etzem. It reveals that it's not bound to be only a source of chayas. So when you look at something, it reveals many things. It depends what you're looking at. That was in chapter 308. So he discussed at length. Hachayis is an example for Eir. But now he's going to distinguish and going to sum it all up. So Chayis, no, I'm going to learn it right now. Yeah, I have to learn this. So Shin Tes is a summary of this whole section.
Yeah. 11:30 is fine.
Okay.
11:30, yeah, okay, fine.
And this is very, very fundamental because it covers a whole bunch of ground. But as I said, it's all part of Elikai HaMelech. Elikai HaMelech. From all this discussion before. Remember, he's going to go through the whole map here. The whole map of Vishtalshlus is going to be here. That's Avram, you always wanted a map. This is it. from all this is an example for above, the Bechinas Eir. Eir teaches us Bechinas Gilei Atzmus. Is the revelation of Atzmus. Hainu Masha Etzem Megala Eir Shalefi Eifana Atzmus. Oh boy. The sound is going, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this is a critical line. Eir reveals to us the Gilei of Atzmus, and he explains what this means. What is Hainu? Which means Masha Etzem Megala Eir Shalefi Eifana Atzmus. That the Etzem reveals an energy and light that's according to the way Atzmus is. This is what I just explained about the whole Yisod of Eir. The Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe with Eir, in Vayelech Samach Vov, he says, Zeh Chiddush Rabbeinu Nishmasei. Eir Ein Sof is because, we just read at the end of the previous chapter there, Tafresh Chof Hei, the end of chapter 306, that Eir is not a force of power here. It's not like Eir has its own independent reality. Eir is God's way of revealing Himself. That's what he's saying here. So, Hainu Masha Etzem Megala Eir Shalefi Eifana Atzmus. So Eir, if you really define Eir, is not we would usually say Eir because we think always in terms of duality. We think, I see something, what is it? Oh, it must be this, it must be that. Light of the sun is a reflection of the sun. The truth is, it works the other way around. The etzem from the etzem, if you're outside of Atzmus, it doesn't work. What do we do with light? There is no light. Atzmus wants to be Megala himself. What is that called? B'loshen b'nei Adam. Teira di b'loshen. It's called Eir. So not Eir reveals Atzmus. Atzmus revealing himself is called Eir. That's what it's called. Now, why is it Eir? Why not call it Shefa? Because Shefa reflects on something that's apart. Eir is always connected. Eir is ultimate bittul. That's why we use the word Eir. Why did God call it? God can call it a different name. So in other words, the whole concept of Eir in our existence, whether it's Eir HaShemesh, Eir HaLavan, all this are just an example, like the Rebbe brings often from Medrash. Mashal ma'adover deime lemelech basar v'dam. So we go the other way. We look at a king and we learn about God. It's the other way around. First there was a God that wanted to be a certain way, so he created a king in this world that said, here's an example of what I'm like. You want to know what tznius is like? Look at a cat. So first there's the tznius. In other words, everything starts with the root. You want to know what gili is like? You want to know what bittul is like? That's Eir. So Eir is etzem megala Eir shalefi eifana atzmus, which explains the whole thing differently than, because therefore that's why Eir reveals it all, because Eir is the gili that Atzmus wants to be begili. He said, at the end of the day, Eir is still just Eir. It's not Atzmus, but it is Atzmus manifesting in gili. So take away Eir, and we wouldn't have the concept of awareness of godliness, basically, in the highest source. You could have it in a lower source in different ways. Okay. Even though it's only a reflection, not the essence, nevertheless, it's like the etzem, similar to the etzem. So it's like a reflection of and a closer. It gives us a picture of the etzem.
Close representation.
Yeah. And that's the key. The Eir is bittul. The Eir is bittul. Now this is the first level. Remember I spoke about the ligvul.
He's not saying it here bittul, but this is obvious.
Yeah. I'm explaining it with that. Yeah. Well, you say dovuk me'ein, yeah. Now this is the level of Eir Ein Sof HaBligvul. Now why is it Bligvul? Why is it not Eir HaGvul? If you think about it, it's obvious why. Because if it's reflecting all of Atzmus is never one thing. It's everything. So it's a natural expression would be Bligvul. Now you could always say to me, one second, who says it's natural Bligvul? Maybe it would be natural. But again, with the seichel that we know and the world that we know, more possibilities is considered to be a bigger picture than smaller possibilities. Yeah, correct. So, bottom line is, this is called Eir and Sif Ablikvul. So, unless there's a specific message to Eir, I want you to be Gvul, which is going to come next, Shir Atzmi B'Keach, Eir, reflecting Atzmus, is going to be a Blikvul thing. Basically, it's an Evet saying, remember we read the Rebbe's letter? The Evet saying, whatever you want, that's what I do. That's Blikvul. Now, you want me to do a specific job? I'm there, I'll do it. But the first step is, whatever it is, it's like Kabul Malchut, whatever it is, and mitzad that, there's no difference in the Rebbe said between a mitzvah daraisa, mitzvah darabanan, or a hechsher mitzvah. Because whatever the job has to get done, I am now I'm the Eir of the source. And this level reveals the etzem, that we know at least that there's the existence of atzmus. So he says at least we know the existence, not the mahus, not the personality. This line is critical because this really is what creates bittul in Nivraim. He doesn't say it right here, but he said it earlier. Because you have to remember that knowing that God has infinite possibilities, and He didn't just have to create me or you or this structure, tells you, it makes you stand in awe of Him. Because you're not His chaver, nishchaver lap. You're not His chaver. It's not like, oh, you created me, and you're bigger than I am, but what we have is still commonality. There's no commonality because I have infinite possibilities. You're one of them. So there's a certain bittul metzias from this. V'adugma b'keiches hanefesh, the second example given is the one from the faculties of the soul. So now when you talk faculties of the soul, this is really a reflection. This is an example. So the example of Eir is on Eir HaBlikvul. How Atzmus is Megala Eir Lefi Eir from Atzmus. Faculties reveal the Eir HaGvul, Midav HaGvul, measurement and parameters. Shagam Zeh B'chin is Gili Min Etzem. This too is a Gili Min Etzem. You see, he says not Gili Ha-Etzem. It's a revelation from the essence of the soul. The Dovuk Ba'etzem, and it's bound to the essence. The Lechenu B'chinas Eir V'Gili. That's why it's a revealer. Remember, faculties reveal. And it reveals the detailed levels all the way to its root and source, above, all the way to the source, to the highest of all levels. These are the 10 hidden spheres, in their emanator, that exist all the way to the highest levels, as we discussed earlier at length. By the way, this is what we're discussing in the early chapters, from basically 15, 16, 18 through 28. As the Spheres Agnuzis. This is level 2. So it doesn't reveal to you all of the whole Atzmus, because when you look at faculties, you know they're coming from the soul. But you could say, is the soul made up only of faculties? No. So it reveals to you, however, the Keiach HaGvul, the particular.
Maybe the soul is made only of faculties.
But it's not. First of all, just not.
What else does it have? Maybe it doesn't have anything else.
Well, in Atzmus, we know for okay. In the soul, you also can't say it. He proved earlier you can't say it for many reasons, because the fact that the soul, if you open up a soul, you're not going to find faculties. It's not the sum of the parts.
Right.
For anything to give off something like faculties, you have to say it has more than just the faculties. It's the law of logic. It's like saying even the sun, which still gives off light, there's more than just light. There's warmth. There's other things in the source.
I
didn't say a soul is infinite. It can do anything, but it's not just defined by faculties. For sure not.
If he could do that means that he's having more to it.
Let's put it.
Even when it learns to it's all part of the 10 faculties. Everything that it does is part of the 10 faculties.
That's how it functions. But they're talking about its personalities. Its personality at 10 parts. Is it 10 components, like a machine of 10? You wouldn't call it that. A soul is a life force. It gives life. It has the ability to manifest in faculties. That's the way the soul expresses itself. But would you say a soul is like a machine made up of 10 parts? You would never say that. Never say that. You for sure can't say that. Besides the fact that they're amorphous, in other words, they're not 10, that's for sure not. They're not defined by 10 mechanisms. It's just that the soul, by definition, is a life force. How much more it has? Yeah, I'm not talking about whether it has spheres and ketz. We're not talking about the soul has. We're not talking about spheres and ketz in the soul, but we're talking about that it's more than just faculties. You have to say it's more than just faculties.
Much more.
I'm trying to find the exact basis of proving it. Much more, yeah. You have to. No, it's not. That's supposed to say it's not defined by faculties. Faculties come from it. It's neise keches, as he put it. In the beginning of the Hemshech, he proved it for sure. I'm just thinking of the examples. The examples were definitely because the fact is that
if it has more than the 10 faculties, then we have to be able to see it someplace.
Well, you see it in the life force. It gives off life. Life is not a faculty. The fact that it gives life, besides specific faculties, life is more than just faculties. Anyway, the point, however, in the previous chapter, he did prove that chayis hanefesh shows that the nefesh itself is more than chayis. You can go back there. I don't want to go there right now. You can learn it later. Fine. Okay. Anyway, bottom line, but it is megala. The most important thing, it is megala the keiches. That's what he's saying here. So it's a gili min ha'etzem, v'davuk be'etzem. Actually, what here he's focusing on is the opposite way. That this is megala, the level pratis, all the way to its source, as we discussed at length. U'kamayim ad antu ilah, kol ilah, and stima to kol stimin. Is the conclusion. Like we say, you are higher than all high.
But the only the Mitzias Ha'atzmus, not the Mitzias Samahus. That's the dogma was he brings here.
He's not talking about air now, he's talking about air hagvul.
But this is Hadugma Mikeres HaNefesh, so the air Abligvul.
No, not to the air hagvul. Not to the air hagvul.
He said before
read.
About the earth of a
that's not Keiches HaNefesh. That was one dogma. The dogma of air reveals bligvul. Hadugma Mikeches HaNefesh reveals gvul.
But this is a dogma for Orient of a bligvul.
No.
That's Mitzias Ha'atzmus, not Mitzias Samahus.
What are you talking about now? Which one? Keiches HaNefesh?
The Keiches HaNefesh.
Read. Hadugma Mekeiches HaNefesh. Read the next line. Who beginnes? Not bligvul. He just spoke about bligvul as air.
This is a dogma for what?
Air hagvul.
Yeah. He doesn't want to explain the Orient of a bligvul.
No. He already spoke. Eir is an example for Eir HaBligvul. This is explaining Eir HaGvul, Eses Firis HaGnuzis. That it's Eir HaGvul all the way up to its source. Yeah, that's the whole discussion. It's a different Eir. It's Eir within the structure. It also comes Mina Etzem, but it's Megala HaMadreges Pratis B'Shoshim HaKeilim, V'heina Eses Firis HaGnuzis, B'metzon Sheyeshna Madrema Mailas. It's a second dogma. He's going through dogmas. The first dogma is Eir. Eir is Gili Atzmus. Keiches HaNefesh is Gili HaGvul. Eir HaGvul. And this is the level Antu Ilah Kol Ilan. You are higher than all the heights, and stima, covered or concealed all the concealments. Shazel B'chlal B'chinas Eir Sof HaBligvul. That's the first level. This, in general, is the Eir Sof, the infinite light, Bligvul. And then comes Antu Afikas Eser Tikunim. Now you are the one from which emerges, from which comes out, which extends 10 tikkunim, 10 ornaments, 10 shapes, repair, whatever. That's the second level. That's the energy that comes in the form of a finite and parameters. V'zeu dafikas. This is the meaning of the word afikas, that it comes out from. This is relieving and a revelation outside of Atzmus Yisbarach. Like we learned before, chapter 49, that the faculties are outside of the essence of the soul. Should be around. What does he mean here? Let me explain. Why is it outside of Atzmus? Because, as I said before, if you want a gili of Atzmus, it has to be one that reveals infinite possibilities, many possibilities. Because Atzmus, by definition, is not bound to one scenario. So Eir HaBli is much more reflective of that. As soon as you say something is Eir HaGvul, it could be Kavonas Atzmus. It's the intention of the essence. But you're already talking about something that's outside of its so-called, I don't even like the word natural, but it's so-called its essential personality, which is of infinite possibilities. So for example, when you say that a human being, that's just as an example, does one act, as powerful as that act may be, you have to say it's chutz l'atzmusi, because atzmusi has to be many more than just one. He may invest in it much, but by definition, it's one of many. Shekol zeh b'chinas gili. All this is gili. So this chapter, as I said, is very Sederistic because he says some key lines here. This is all gili. So we found two types of giluim. One is a gili and gvul, one is a gili and bli gvul. Now comes, of course, the biggest problem in life, is when there's no gili. When there's gili, it's l'fiyarech. Achin Hashem ub'chinas helam. However, by contrast, a name, that's the level of helam. It's concealed. And now he's going to get into the world of keilim. And in general, this is the level of containers. That's the continuation of Pasuk Chaliyo. So,
Didn't we learn that there was another level in between?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but here he's not going there right now. He's not talking about three levels really. He's just talking in general. That's the three stages of how air.
Right.
There was antu chad v'lei b'chushbon, antu chakim v'lei b'chachme, and antu dekoshelon. That was that. Here he's talking more. Just the three ways that three. This is not three stages. He didn't say these three. These are three entities. It's not. I would not compare. Is it connected? You could connect. The first one is Eir HaBli. No, because there it's all in the Eir HaGvul. It's Esvis Agnuzis before containers and in containers. That doesn't go to Eir HaBli there. Yeah, here he's going. Here he's covering it all. Now come the keilim. I'm sorry. Kama gufin. How many bodies or how many gufin? How many? Yeah, like structures. Tekinuslan. Did you? Fashion. Shehein b'chinas hakelim. These are the containers. Ve'emer, and he continues and says there in Pasuk Chaliyo all this. Ve'kad ant tistalik minayu. And when, and when they remove from them the energy, ishtar kul shman. They remain all like empty names. He says like names, which means. Shashem hu b'chinas hakelim shem b'chinas helam b'etzem uhusam. Because the name is the level of containers that they are fundamentally concealed b'etzem uhusam. Their fundamental nature is concealment. That's why istalik minayu. Take away the energy. What do you have left? It's like a body without a soul. A name. They just remain like so-called empty, lifeless names. Why? Because containers are separate from their source. That's why they're a level of concealment, and they conceal on the energy. Let me just explain this before we continue. He's going to explain, keilim of course reveal, they're not just concealers. But the key thing to remember here, especially in contrast to Eir, keilim, its role is identity. It's defining an identity of something. So by definition, it's not a revealer of its source. It's a revealer of its identity. You ask Eir, what are you? I'm an agent of my source. Eir HaBli Gvul is everything. Eir HaGvul is a specific flow. You ask a paintbrush. If you ask an artist's energy, so to speak, what are you? I'm here to convey what the artist wants to draw. If it's Eir HaBli Gvul, whatever, infinite possibility. Eir HaGvul. You ask a paintbrush, what's your role? My role is I'm an instrument. I'm an instrument that's going to be used to make a color here and there. My definition is instrument, not definition is, I'm not a conveyor. Because a paintbrush, take away, like he says, istalik menayu, take away, all it is a paintbrush. Without it, The artist can't build anything in this world that we have. So keli is by definition a concealer, not a revealer. Its job is not to reveal the mind of the artist. Its job is to implement what the mind of the artist is telling it to do. A hammer is not meant to be a thinker. A hammer should not be an oir. It should be only a keli. You don't want the hammer's opinion.
That's when you have problems.
Exactly. You don't want the hammer. You want the hammer to do its job. So it's necessary, but its definition is helam, not gili. But I just want to explain, because helam, sometimes we take helam as being negative, like helam is vastadium of golus. A keli could become the source of all the tzaddis because of its helam. But by definition, initially it's not helam. God put it there for a reason. But because it has an identity. If there was no keilim in this world, only eir, there could be no klippa. There could be nothing, because eir can only reveal. It can't do anything else. It's only because the containers exist, and then let's say the paintbrush suddenly says, you know what? I'm not interested in what you have to tell me to do. I have my own agenda. I'm not going to paint your picture. I'm going to paint my own picture, or I'm going to join another artist. In other words, but definition of keli is a helam in that sense. Helam meaning it's not a revealer of its source, it's a revealer of its identity, a real revealer of what the source wants me to do, but not revealing its purpose. Like I said, it's like, keilim are like the items in a dark room, where they're there, but it's concealed by definition. You need eir to come in and tell the keilim, you do this, you do that. You take away the eir neshama from the guf does not know what to do. Not only doesn't know what to do, it can't do anything. It has no functionality. So what's a guf without a neshama? But what's a neshama without a guf? So the Gemara's dogmas, like the chigir and the summa, right? The body says, the soul told me what to do. The soul says, I couldn't do anything without the body. But one is the captain of the ship, and one is the ship. A ship on its own is in that sense it's a concealer. Think of it like what the Shalosh says, klipa shemer lepri. What's a klipa? Klipa is not a bad thing. Klipa is a shell that protects a fruit actually from bugs and from bacteria and from being contaminated. It's actually a protector. So it's a keli. So if you ask, is the cover of a fruit, is it a revealer or a concealer? Fundamentally, it's a protector. That's what it really is. But by nature, because of it conceals. The fruit itself is the revelation. Now, when the problems become, when you think that the peel is the ikir, and you forget that there's a fruit inside. But once you see it as a peel, then that's its role. That's its keilim. Keilim of Atzilus know that they're keilim of Atzilus and keilim of the Eiris. Keilim of Bria don't know so much, and keilim of Asiyah, Gashmim, and Chumrim don't know at all. So here's the world we live in, and the first thing you turn on the news in the morning, they'll tell you about the future stock market or something. That's the world that they're busy with. They don't even know they're keilim of something. They think that they are it. They're the Eir. That's when the keli thinks it's the Eir, then you got trouble. So this is what shem is like. Okay. So that's a name. That's what a name is like. When you say something has a name, what is the name? The name in essence is the source, but it's not a revealer. It's a description. If you have a name, I can call you. So I have a way to communicate with you. That's its so-called technical purpose. The name is rooted in your essence, so your name can be Me'er, he's going to speak. But by definition, it's not a revealer. A revealer is your seichel is a revealer. Your even gili ha-metzach, chochmas adam teir panov. Your presence is a gili. I look at you, I see something. Someone tells me your name, I never met you. I'm not talking about if you know Kabbalah and you know Shirashim. Like you said before, you have two people of Ram, one could be a Talmid Chacham, one could be an Amoritz.
With names, you can know right away if he's an American, if he's another nationality.
Yeah, but that's incidental.
His religion, what kind of religion
If you know Avram, what do you know about somebody?
You know that he's Jewish. You know that he's religious. There's a lot of things you could already know.
Come on, but
if you have a name,
would you consider this to be a compliment if someone just knew that you're Jewish and that what?
No, but you already know things about him.
No, nothing about him. What do you know about I'm talking about personality.
No, but yeah, it's not.
Nothing. Personality. You're talking about social things. That would be like saying, if I say that I'm Avram, the painter, I'm a painter. Even that doesn't tell you much. What does it tell you? That's what I do. That's like my business card. It doesn't tell you about who I am. It doesn't tell you who you are. You have to remember, compare it to Eir and you'll understand right away. Eir is a revealer. Eir is when you speak from your heart and you tell me what you think about and what you care about, what you feel. You could be lying, But authentic Eir is going to reveal something about it. That's the key thing. Okay. This is shem. So generally it's keilim. One second, this plot thickens, remember. It's not remaining keilim, as we know. Nothing stays simple. So that's nivdil b'mekedem. That's what means nivdil b'mekedem. What means nivdil b'mekedem? People ask, what do you mean? Keli is nivdil b'mekedem? Who put them there if not the market? But the way the market wants them to be is to be nivdil. The way they're created is to be nivdil, not they separated themselves. It's not like the paintbrush has to be nivdil for it to serve its role. It has to be a hammer. It can't be your hand. The whole point of the tool is that it should be nivdil.
It's only the Gabeinu, because it's the highest is being mamshech.
But it's also it's also the gab of the source, because the source wants a paintbrush. He doesn't want the paintbrush to reveal, like he said. Eir, when God wants to be revealed, you call it Eir. When you want to know what He wants, His function, you call it keilim. That's the point, even from His point of view. But you're getting into semantics. Nivdil means that it's not a reflection of Him; it's a reflection of what He wants. That's what it means. That's what nivdil means. It's separate from the etzem. Eir habligvul is megala all of it. Eir hagvul is megala part of it, and hakeli does not megala. But that's all that's relevant here. You're talking now semantics, or you're talking havana?
Even havana.
No, what?
Because it's double b'mkairei, but it's not.
No. First of all, it's not correct because the etzem is not being the etzem is not being nizgala there, so it is nivdal from the etzem, even from the etzem's point of view. Yeah. What you're talking about? Achdus you're talking?
Yeah,
you're talking about from Atzmos? First of all, we're not talking from Atzmos' point of view, number one. Number two, even from Atzmos' point of view, it's a different thing. He wants something different. When a keli comes, so why is this becoming a keli and this one a eir? If it's all the same? Okay, but that vault is one is nivdal dika vault and one is not nivdal dika. When God wanted to create a dir of tachtenim, that's helam elakus. Is this helam or not helam? He wanted on Sabbath the dir of tachtenim. It's only helam for us or also helam from Him? Think about it. We don't have to go there. It's helam from Him also all we're doing is meaningless. It's only for us. So what the Sav in Atzmos? Atzmos wants a dir b'tachtenim. The Rebbe says tachtenim mein vos, helam acher helam. And that's what he says. Not helam in Gashmis. It's helam in helam alakus. And that's where he wants his dir. So is the dir if there's no tachtenim by him? So then why is it in the Sav dir b'tachtenim? Oh, so maybe you don't get it right. It's not correct. The answer is that there's tachtenim from his perspective.
So you built an elevator.
Whatever you want to call it. But is that the question? Tachtenim are nivdal. That's when Isava did it, but tachtenim is something, in a place of nivdal, he wants to have achdus.
It's nivdal in a sense that you don't sense the keilim of the kus there, but it's not nivdal that lets us upon him and
I don't know what to say. So all this discussion, keilim, eris, is what? No, absolutely not. No. Then Torah mitzvah is only for us, not for the Eibishter.
It's both true.
Why are we saying the Sava and Atzmus? No. You're asking why there's a taiva, but the taiva is an Atzmus and Shtok and Shaila. I don't know what to tell you.
It's a complete helam. But him, it's not helam. But he knows that there is the concept.
What do you mean it's not helam? How do you know what helam means? Why? How do you know how he sees it? If you're so beyond this, how do you know how he sees it? Maybe he sees it as a real helam also.
It's impossible.
Why? There's no such thing as impossible. What do you make?
Machen was primitive. You know the famous thing. Can machen a stehen, was kann nicht tun. Beide richtig. Sie erkennt nicht.
Das ist nicht
steht schon mit der Famon.
No,
aber steht schon mit
der Famon.
אבל בשני כיוונים אתה מגביל אותו. גם שאתה אומר כן, גם שאתה אומר לא. כמו שלפר.
If it's satisfying to you that it's only from our perspective, I'm telling you absolutely not. For sure not.
This is one of my basic misunderstandings.
For sure not. This is not random. The problem is you are making, as you just said, a word impossible. Impossible is a word that's human. In the word of God, there's no such thing as impossible. Let's just make that clear. So to start using your logic in Atzmus is nothing, is meaningless. Who says, and nothing is impossible. Even a stone, the stone thing is a ridiculous discussion. It's a human discussion. There's nothing to do. Who says there's contradictions by God? There's no contradictions. Everything could be and everything cannot be. It says, Nimnam Nemoy is meant as Rechev ve'einu Rechev bebas achas. Can you explain that to me? Is that impossible?
No.
It says,
no.
For you it's impossible. How can it be Rechev and not Rechev at once?
Sitting and standing.
Yeah. Can you sit and stand at once? It doesn't make any sense. Can you fly and be on the ground at once?
Okay.
There's no way. But that's Nimna Nimnois. But I'm not getting to that. The point I'm trying to say is like this. That however you want, if you're, I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Maybe I didn't.
So you talking about the same thing? The two of you?
Also ich habe verstanden, der Ihnen von Nivdel mit dem keilim. Du sagst bei uns, Emerson ja Havdola mit dem keilim. Und ich verstehe das nicht. Bei mir wollen Sie das nicht stoppen.
Well, to say that keilim are just like Eir, and it's just for our perspective, basically undermines the whole thing. There's no way you can say that. That would be like saying the Baal Mitzad Elikus Dogili Elikus in Weltchain. So all mitzvahs is just for us to see it, and God already has Elikus in this world. Impossible to say such a thing. Then you say the whole concept of Shchinta Begalusa falls down. The whole point of Mashiach being just for us and not for God. No, then the whole thing is that Dira B'Tachtenim is not an Atzmus. Dira B'Tachtenim is for lower levels, for people who don't see to see. Atzmus, the whole Desava, Kosh Baruch Hu, the Dira B'Tachtenim doesn't make sense because there's no such thing as Tachtenim. But Atzmus says there is Tachtenim. He wants Tachtenim. And Tachtenim are real, and there are consequences. And when you do something, you reveal, and when you don't, it's not. Even from Atzmus' perspective. You want an explanation for this? You have to say, bottom line is the Kol Yochel of Atzmus can create, just like he creates Bligvul, he can create Gvul. Just like he creates Gili, he can create Helam. And Helam is his Helam. He wants it to be Helam, and it's a Helam. Helam Amiti. All the way Shadish Advarim. Who says Gili is a Maila? I'll ask you a better question. Who said Gili is a Maila B'chol? So who says Gili is a Maila?
So what is Atul?
Who said Nivdil is a Chsar? He wants it to be Nivdil. It's Nivdil.
So what's the difference between Atul and Nivdil?
You're trying to apply, again, your...
Ain't Shinoi Lefono. What does it mean?
So this is the hundreds of pages of Chassidus come to explain this. Yeah. No. How do you understand it? Do you have an answer?
That's Klape Atachtenim, not Lefono.
Okay, fine. So then how do you explain the Savak Dirib Tachtenim? When Mashiach comes, is going to make a difference to God or no difference? It's Im Chatasa Ma Tasalei. That's how you're saying. It's only for us.
That's what he wants. This is his son.
So what he wants it's him. He wants it. That means it makes a difference. How you explain Shinui? You can explain it different ways. You can explain it that Atzmus is L'mayla Mizman. I mean, there's a lot of ways to... The point of the matter is, one of the whole points of Eir and Sfiris is to explain Shinui, that the Shinuyim happen in the level of the Sfiris. But the bottom line is they're all rooted in Atzmus. Even the Shinuyim, even the differences that happen are also rooted there. Look, we just said, for example, that we just said 100 times here, that Eir is only a reflection of Atzmus, not Atzmus. Like Eir doesn't affect the Moyer, correct? Eir doesn't even Etzim reflect all of the Moyer, because God is beyond Eir. But He chose to manifest in Eir. So how do you deal with that dilemma? The God that doesn't need any Eir and is not reflected in any Eir chose to manifest in Eir, chose to reveal Himself. So you have to at the end of the day say that there's two things happening at once. He chose, and therefore we could connect with Him that way, and we do have an impact. But it's all, at the end of the day, it was choice. So ultimately, He's not human in the sense where if He didn't do it, He's missing something. Maybe you're understanding the thing in terms of missing and filling. We're not, that's a whole different discussion. But I think we're moving here to, Nivdal is one thing. And
That's an important point. That's
a mega point.
Aber er ist pashut nummer haben ein bisschen mehr Eires.
This is the son.
This is the example. Right now it's going to
At the end, I will just tell you, there's only one way to understand it, but you can only understand it through the Giluyim. And when you go through all of them, you come to a point where you can start relating how it's on Atzmus level. That's ultimately the only real answer. You're not going to get it until you learn it all on the levels that you have to learn it. The fact of the matter is, he did create it in a way that there's a structure. Like the keilim have to become acclimated to the Eir. Eir HaGvul goes up to its source. It connects to Eir HaBli. They all connect to Atzmus. When we do all of this, we begin to start getting a sense how it's happening up there in Atzmus. You can't go there, there's no shortcuts. So I don't know if there's a way to explain it from there without understanding it first on the level that we're talking here. That's really the ultimate truth. You just can't go there. Because that's why, if God would say you can go there, He wouldn't have created a whole Shtalshlus. Why not just jump express train straight to the source? But the source manifests Himself in this way. And when you do a mitzvah, why don't you ask a better question? Does it really care? If He doesn't really care up there, no difference to Him. Chometz and matzah. What does it do to all the mitzvahs? Just for us? Tell me what the consequences of that are.
That's what He wants.
He wants what? He wants it. But does it make a difference to Him? Does it make a difference to Him? So?
That's how I want it.
Okay, so what's the question then?
Now it becomes relevant.
Okay, so He wanted that should be tachteinim,
right?
They're a nivdal,
yeah.
And they should do something. Okay, so what's the problem? So what's your question?
Did He really create?
So if He really wanted it, then it's real.
Yeah.
You just said it.
Okay, so
you say you don't understand how it's real.
Yeah.
So you don't understand how He sees it. You don't understand how He sees it. That's what you're saying. But you do understand that He sees it this way. Okay, fine. So that's enough. So what's the problem? So my answer to you to verstehen wie zetas. First, let's see it from. You have to go mamat l'mayla. I don't think you can just jump and see how God sees the world.
I just feel that from time to time there's an eruption of this misunderstanding.
But it's important to say what I'm just saying here. We spoke this many times. We have difficulty even understanding Asiyah Ruchnis. You want to understand how Atzmus sees Asiyah? You can't even figure out how Ruchnis is in the Tzira and Bria. Let's just talk. What's the difference in keilim of Atzilus and Eris of Atzilus? So we know. So we spoke. Keilim is the identity of Chesed. Eris is God's will in the Chesed. Let's just say that for a moment. That is itself can take a long time to absorb. And then as you climb the ladder, you get more and more to the point where you can start seeing how God actually sees the world. I don't think it's something that's even possible to express. When I speak, what I'm saying right now is based on the abstractions. Shlila. You say antu chakim v'lei b'chach miyadiyah. You're really asking. That's what you're asking. How does God see the thing that we call keach nivdal, called keilim? We know how we see it. Like you said, it's a part. How does God see this thing called keilim? He looks at keilim. He looks at Atzilus from the bird's eye view. What does He see? So of course you could speak. There's a level in Atzmus say He sees no difference. But we're not talking. But that's not what we want. We're talking about the world that He wants. He wants to see a difference. Forget about, I'm not talking about He has to see a difference. He chose to create the world as it is. How does He see? When He looks at Ashgacha Pratis, He sees your life and my life. They're not the same life. He doesn't just see it all as one. Obviously, there's a level where it's all part of one picture, and it's all Moshava, Mashva, Katan, V'Gadol. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how does He see the distinctions that He wanted. Not how He sees the Achdus we understand. He sees it all as one. But He created, how does He see Eir HaGvul? How does He even look at Eir? We know that Etzem Rotza Shemagala Eir Lefi Eifan Atzmus. Here's Atzmus looking at Eir. So we could be Meshayir. I can give you some aces. We learn a little here. But if you really want to understand, the only way is first you have to see this. First you have to get not beyond how you see it. Then you start seeing how it sees from Atzilus. Then you go to Ak, and then you go all the way. That's the only way to do it, really. But I think there's a process here, and it's not so crazy. It makes sense that this is the way to do it. The first thing is we have to get out of our limited rules of this, not that. That's the first thing. You have to be able to see things in a much more edel way. That's how it is. An edel way that's back and forth. The struggle we're struggling with is the struggle of the interface. If this was easy, we wouldn't need Ayin Beis. What you're asking is, how do we interface? You just said, how do we see it, and how does God see it? Can we see it the same way? The answer is we could. That's what Kuli made do Esi, that's Mashiach. But it doesn't come easy. It comes through a lot of Aveda, a lot of Haskalah, and you got to really study it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm saying by learning this, you slowly...
I'm totally trying to understand. It's not that I present my thing as a...
So far...
resolution.
Yeah. The bottom line is that keilim are nivdal, and because they're behelim be'etzem mitzvus, my lima malayer. Now he says the ima yesha keilim megalim aseir. Okay, there you go. We just said keilim is helim. Now he's saying even though keilim reveal the energy, the light, harizeh adesha my lima mal etzem eir hamegalim umegalim rabchinas orach etzenis levad. Oh, now we're going a little deeper. It means because they conceal the essence of the light and reveal only its outer reflection. In other words, I described before why it's called Helam. The paintbrush is fundamentally Helam, not because it can't reveal. It will reveal. When you're going to start painting, the paintbrush is going to be a revealer, not a concealer. It's going to reveal everything the artist wants to do. But the brush itself, and even the first strokes, or the strokes, their revealing is through concealing. If the paintbrush was directly connected to the artist's soul, it would be too intense for it to really express. Its whole mila is, think of like a reservoir of water, and you want to have a cup of water to drink. Can you drink a reservoir? You can't. It'll just flood you. You need a keilim. The keilim is fundamentally concealing. It's concealing the whole bli gvul, the infinite yam, reservoir, so you can have a drink of water. So it has to conceal the intensity of the essence to reveal. That's what he's saying. So let's go back. A keilim by definition is a helam. It begins as a helam. But let's again, helam doesn't mean hepach halakus. Helam means concealing the whole flow. Eir ha-bli gvul even, Eir ha-gvul rather. Eir ha-bli gvul is for sure. Even Eir ha-gvul is a revealer. It reveals. God wants chesed, gvura. Let's look at the artist. The artist now has a vision of one piece of art. He's not made it. That's a revealer. And he starts telling you, I'm going to make a field. I'm going to make a sunset. But now comes another. We live in a world where there's structure. The structure, on the other hand, the trees. By definition, they are not revealers. They're just entities. They're the object, not the transmission. They're the objects in the dark room that God created. Okay, and so they're concealed. But so even though he says ima yes, but they do it. How do they megala? By concealing, by concealing the whole intensity of it, or a teacher who's dressing up an idea in an example. Yeah, in Asius, exactly. Keilim. So the Asius are concealers or revealers? Concealers, meaning it's a concealer, because liba lepuma legalia, right? You cannot reveal the essence of your soul, the essence of your heart. Liba lepuma legalia. So what you have to do is conceal. But at the end of the day, Asius will reveal by concealing. It conceals the inner part of your soul, so it can start to reveal. What time is it? 11? Really? That late? I have to also repark now.
Where you go?
Next block. You can park there. Okay, let me continue. Well, commotion is Baralel Perek Reish Hey, like we discussed earlier, chapter 285, V'achazeh, and the chapters afterwards, B'inyan Primis V'chitzein Shabikelim, the inner and outer dimensions of the containers. Because they're fundamentally concealed, that's why the gili through them is through concealment. See, he's adding now a key point. Because fundamentally a keli is not a revealer of the picture of what God is like. It's only a revealer, so to speak, of what God wants. So in other words, it's fundamentally hell, and that's why it reveals through it. So Asius, by definition, are concealers. That's why they reveal through concealing. Make sense? They reveal through concealing. Yeah. In other words, if a keli was like an eir, if the shell was not a shell, if it was just another form of light, it wouldn't be able to reveal for the next level. In other words, if let's say you give a mashal to a student, and the student says, something, your mashal is as complicated as your nimshal. So you didn't accomplish anything. You need dafka something, a dover zar, something that's a real keli, that's a concealer to reveal if you want to go to the next level. So that's a key thing. Keilim are revealing to the next level, but to do that, they need to conceal the higher level. That's essentially it. That doesn't exist in Eir. Eir remains always a revealer. You can diminish energy, like we learned. From Esses to Sagnuzis, you can have a concealment. That's a key point also, because if you remember, we spoke about the two tzimtzumim.
And also the two parts of the keilim. One is that it becomes receptacle, and then it...
Yeah, he's going to say this now. But remember, when it comes to tzimtzumim, he spoke that tzimtzum, all it does is conceal the intensity, but it does not create a container. You have to have ACs there to emerge. It's not going to help anything if
You totally conceal.
Okay. And more specifically, the level of name is the level of malchus. So here we go. So he's talking about Ayin Habligvul, Ayin Hagvul. He's now moved to shemis and keilim, containers. And now he's saying, more specifically, shem is the level of malchus. Shanish bar leil perik shinvav, because we discussed earlier, chapter 306, the shem of b'chinas levush, that a name is the level of a garment. So now we're talking about levush, which is even a lower level. V'nizbar shama hefresh ben keilim v'levush, and explained the difference between containers and garment. The keilim u'shem esardim ima'er, that containers are united with energy. And a garment is not united with the one who's dressed in that garment, because he's separate. He's a separate level. And therefore it conceals even further. Now he's going even lower. He's going even lower now. He's going from keilim now into levush. She's saying that malchus is even lower than just keilim. He's going to explain this. So levush now is even lower. Huh? Huh? Is anyone out there? But they can come any minute. You want to move it? You don't mind. On the piano near my wallet, there's the key. It's the black car right across. No. It's a single key right near the wallet there. It's a single. It's you know which one it is, yeah. Okay, levush. So now levush is even further than keiches, because keiches are still faculties. A levush, as we know, is a garment. You put on a garment, it doesn't reflect anything about the person dressed in that garment. So Perek 306, that's what he said. I asked the interpretation. And Malchus is the level of Lavush, Hashem Melech, Hashem is the king, Geus Lavash. And he expresses himself, he dresses himself. What's Geus? Manifests himself in a garment. Okay, this is a whole parenthesis, a long parenthesis. So what do we have here is that now Lavush is lower than keilim. And that's Malchus. Now he's going to say, and even though a garment does not change the energy, that it should be like its own personality, like the containers, like we discussed earlier there. A Lavush, on the one hand, is outside of the person, but it doesn't change the person. Nevertheless, they conceal more energy than containers do, being that they're a separate garment. So it goes both ways. Keilim, or take keilim, for example. If God forbid there's an injury to a part of the body, the keili, let's say the eye or the ear, it affects the energy. The energy leaves or is diminished. If your garment gets dirty, the energy doesn't stop flowing. So a levush doesn't. On the other hand, a levush conceals more than the keili does. So even though the keili has a more impact on the energy, it's not as quite as outside of it. Okay. Because through a garment is transmitted only an outer reflection, and it's all separate, and level that's separate. Now he's going to explain. The reason for this is because keilim, at the end of the day, they're still commensurate, they're still proportionate to the energy. That's why it's a kli. Liyez b'chinas kli, being a kli, a container. That's why the energy unites and becomes one with, becomes totally internalized, totally misatzim. How would you translate misatzim?
The etzem.
Totally fused. We said fusion. And the energy becomes like the personality of the container. So it goes both ways. The energy unites with the container, but also the container unites with energy. And therefore, through the energy, you still have gili ha'er. It reveals some energy. And that's the whole Ayin of a container, that it should reveal energy. And let's again explain. What he said before, that a keilim is helam, is its personality is a concealed personality. But the point of the paintbrush, or the point of any container, is to reveal, is to bring it down to the next level. To do so, it has to conceal a higher level, or the essence of a higher level. But a container, at the end of the day, is a container to air. Aval halavush, but a garment is not a container. The human faculties, for example, your eyes, your ears, your eyeball is a keilim, your eye socket. And God forbid, should there be an injury, it's going to affect the flow. Your eyeglasses are not. Or sunglasses. Or if you put on something that's just to make it look good. An ornamental garment. You put on a shirt. So your shirt, you could be in a certain mood, you're putting on a white shirt for Shabbos, Yontif, whatever it is. But a shirt does not reflect, and the energy of your personality is not manifesting in the levush. Well, you can change the levush. Your levush can get dirty, and it doesn't change the flow. Obviously, to some extent, the levush can create a mood. It expresses. You can also dress up in a costume, and it doesn't reflect anything. The bottom line, a levush. Now, Chassidus says that a levush is a makif hakarev. Then there's makif harochik, which is a building, a home. A levush, at least you could say, is measured to the part, but you can tell how tall the person is, how short. Even that, you could wear a levush that's not your size. But it's still, a levush compared to keilim, is more nivdal. So he's going down all the levels here. We've gotten er hablikvul, er hagvul. He's gotten to keilim. Now he's gotten to shem and levush and malchus. And now he's going to say, chetzein is ha-keilim and pnimi is ha-keilim. That's why it has on one hand the advantage, the virtue that it doesn't get changed the person doesn't get changed. The air does not change itself according to the personality of the levush. Just because you put on a garment doesn't mean more energy flows or less flows, like let's say the containers of the faculties of your body, your organs. Nevertheless, something else happens. The one who's dressing up will conceal himself in order to be able to manifest in this garment. But he doesn't become necessarily like the personality of the garment. In other words, let's say when a king would go out, he would dress up like the common. So he would be mitzamtzim himself, because he's wearing now garments of a regular person, not a king. So he's going to, but it's not that the garment fundamentally, it's not like you would take energy and put it into a small container. The garment is he chose to wear such a garment, so he's going to he's going to choose to now limit not behave like a king. Except for someone like the Alter Rebbe that would recognize it. But the garment itself is not the definer, and also, he doesn't become like a Mahus al-Lavush. It's not like the king has suddenly become now a commoner. He's just looking like that from the outside perspective. Nevertheless, however, even though it's true the levush does not change the energy like the keilim does, but it's also much more of a concealer, and much more nivdal yesen, and more separate, because it's a garment that's separate from the energy. Now he's going to reconcile something. So now we have a new level: keilim, levush, which is shem, and malchus. So you can say it like this. Well, El Perek Reish Beis Zayin, before in chapter 287, is Baruch Shagam Hagilu Shadei Chetzein Sakelim Ha'aretz Nivdelas. We learned that also the revelation through the outer containers is a separate reflection.
Which is the bush?
He's going to say now that that's why it's both. 1 second. Just for the record, keilim, he said, is a gilui of ha'ara chitzenius levad. Levush is ha'ara chitzenius and nivdalas. So here's how he reconciles it. Ve'efsher de mishum zeh gam ha'keilim nikra shem kanal. Remember before he said that keilim are shemus. Remember he said kula nistalik, minaya ishtarik kula shman. Then he went to explain that the shem is lower than a. Then he went to explain that levush is lower than a keilim. She says maybe this is the reason, because based on the above, the chitzenius hakelim, pnimius hakelim reveal more than a levush does, but chitzenius hakelim, maybe because of this, that's why kelim are called shem, canal.
Chitzenius hakelim?
Yeah. Yesh leim, what?
What is chitzenius?
There's a whole chapters before they discussed it. Chitzenius hakelim generally is the kelim's function, like a cup that it contains liquid is its pnimius, its inner part. The outer part where you hold it and you drink it is its outer. So there's the you said there's shem ha'pu'ula and shem ha'teyar. If you describe a container, shem ha'teyar, you're describing its function, its identity, and when pu'ula is you're describing its function. That's always chitzenius. There's a length chapters on this topic. So he says, as he says, chapter 287. So that's why maybe you can call keilim shem. Yesh leimish zebchins chitzenius hakelim. We can say this is the level of the outer containers. The Masha Omar, the Kad Antistalik Minayu, what we said before, that when you remove yourself, that's referring to the outer containers. And he's going to explain now. The inner containers, the energy always radiates there and it never leaves. So you can't say Kant Antistalik Minayu. Like for example, talking about malchus being levush and shame, the miut, the diminishing and the lack of energy, light in malchus. It's only in the lower spheres of malchus. This is like we talk about miut halavana. When the lavana is diminished, you talk about this. The lower levels, the 5 lower levels of malchus are diminished. But the first 5 spheres are always radiating. Like we learned, like it's discussed in Siddur, the Mittler Rebbe Siddur, in Shabbos Brachas, we talk on the pirush of that tefillah. Yoshki Kibbur Loretz Eirech. It's Alter Rebbe's Maimorim, but it's called the Mittler Rebbe Siddur. It says Hanachas. U'kameshin is Bar Leil Perek Kev Kuf Yud Gimel, like we learned before chapter 113. U'kamoy Kain Yesh Leima, the same thing you can say about Keilim. The Primiz Atzmas HaKeilim, like the 5 higher levels of the 5 first levels of malchus, the inner and essence of the containers, meir tamid. The energy is always there, so you can't say nostalgic. that they leave. V'siluk v'helam ha'er, and the removal and the concealment of the energy, urak b'chinas chetzenis hakeilim. He says ha'er, but below he says hakeilim, is only in the level of the outer container. B'chinazu b'shenikra shem. So now we have another level. The chetzenis hakeilim is called shem, levush. That's the lowest level.
So this is the same thing like levush?
Yeah. V'zeh shamat chilu kama gufan tekinis lahun. And this that says before, how many bodies, how many structures you formed, you shaped, you fashioned. And that when he says this, you can say, this is referring to the inner containers. He's still in the middle of the parentheses. Nevertheless, even this level of shame and chetzenis hakeilim is still not compared to the garments that conceal even more. And the energy becomes even more apart, separate. And that's the formula. Relative to the levush, how strong the garment is, that's how much the concealment of the energy. As we shall discuss later, in the concept of the inyan of parsois. Parsois are like the curtains, the filters, not filters. What do you say? The shields.
The actual translation is curtains, but the
curtains. But he means the. Yeah. Well, the common Pedic Tov Chaf below, chapter 420, is Boish Abchinas Chetzenis Hakeilim and Abchinas Levushim d'Atzilus. We're going to learn that the outer containers are Levushim of Atzilus. So here's what we have so far. Listen to this. Eir HaBligvul, the Keiches HaNefesh is Eir HaGvul. Then we have keilim. Then we have levush and shem. Each one more. Eir is megala. Eir HaBligvul is megala. Bligvul, Eir HaGvul is megala. Keich is mylin. It reveals through concealing. Levush conceals even more, to the point that it becomes completely separate. Levush is not even outside of you. So think of it like this. And that itself, you have inner containers where the energy is always there, outer containers where they can be removed, and lower, that's the levushim of Atzilus, and then there's levushim of Biyah, is the levushim even lower levushim. So
the levush is lower than the outer containers.
Yeah, right here, yeah. So really, if you think about a human being, how many levels does a human being we have from this? It goes, you have your etzem HaNefesh, etzem HaNeshama. You have your Eir HaBligvul, which is Megala, the same. So that's already two. You have your Eir HaGvul, which is the Keiches. You have your keilim. You have your chetzenis hakeilim, and you have your levushim. 6 levels, from the inner you all the way to your garments. And we're not even talking about your pu'ulis outside of you. It's pretty good. So the question is, where do we live? Achshav d'bermais is generally levushim, but there's also levushim, physical levushim. Yeah. Levushim are outside of the keiches HaNefesh, right? This is all the parentheses. Then he goes, "L'chein ha-malchus ub'chinas helam." Since malchus is levush, as he said, geis lavush, right? Shem malach geis lavush. How would you try geis? Shem malach geis lavush. He expresses himself. He gaiva like. Okay, so he says like this. As it's known that the structure of malchus is through gvuras, through severity, through din, through authority. And gvura is always helam. Because the melech is not like a teacher or a father. A father is primarily close to his children. A melech is primarily an authority. Authority is by definition a ruler. He rules. But it's also a concealer, he's going to say. Because you don't know anything about the melech. All you know is that he's an authority. It's Kabbalah Shel. And it's from this level that you could have the creation of the worlds. Because the worlds are outside of the essence. In order to create worlds that are not within the essence, you need something on the level of levush. You cannot do it with Eir alone. You can't even do it with keilim. You can't do it with Eir HaBligvul. You can't do it with Eir HaGvul alone. You can't do it with keilim alone. You can't do it with primis HaKeilim alone. You need the outer garments. Levush, malchus. Ukamesh bereishis bar elikim dafka. The mebchinis had tzimtzum b'chinis malchus dafka hu esavus. That the tzimtzum, the concealment that's in malchus, That's where you have the Isavas. Remember, you just said Malchus is Levush. The higher spheres of Malchus is like Primis HaKeilim. The 5 lower spheres is like Chitzenis HaKeilim. V'zeu shekaz Malchus Malchus Kol Elamim. That's what it says. Malchus Kol Elamim. Your kingdom is the kingship of all the worlds. What does this mean? The Kol Elamim Sheish Shavus Mebchinas Malchus. It means that all the worlds, their root of creation, of becoming into being, is from the level of Malchus, Dafka, specifically. Or Pirish Kol Elamim. What means Kol Elamim? Say Malchus Kol Elamim. How many worlds are there? Kol Elamim, Kol B'Gematria Chamishim. Kol is 50. The Gematria Chof is 20, Lamed is 30. Kol Hanun Alofim Yevlis. All the 50,000 jubilees, as we said, 2.5 million years. Nun Alofim Yevlis is an expression from Medrash and from Zayar, just referring to the span of time. So Shit Alpha Shnin is the structure on one level, but Nun Alofim Yevlis would be Lasid Loge. So the Zuchni is Gashmis. It's not so simple.
No, because when Bereshis, the base, says it's also in the second
Shemitah.
It's in the second Shemitah.
Yeah. Yeah, there is I did in Sefer Lekutim. There's a erech. Nun Alofim Yevlis talks about the different interpretations, but it's an expression basically referring to how the future, the extension of time, whether it's Baruch is. But bottom line is, it refers to a very big span of time. Hakolum b'chinas hamalchus. All these 50,000 jubilees, 50,000 times 50. What do we say? It's 2.5 million, right? Yeah. Is all from the level of Malchus. Malchus Kol Elam. K'mashakosov l'chu chazu mefales alikim asher som shamas ba'aretz. Go see the wonders, the creations, the functions of God that He placed with shamus, measurements. He placed rules. There's the simple interpretation. He says al tikra, but shem shamas ba'aretz. It's like Shammai. It's Meloshin. I think it's Meloshin. What do you say? Oh, that he destruction.
Yeah, that it's chaos.
Okay, maybe. But then he says Al tikra shamas ela shemes. Read it as names. Shagam b'chinas shemes or b'chinas shem levad. Or gam b'chinas shamas or b'chinas shem levad. That's what he's saying. That all this that he said, that's why it looks like it's something big, because if it's chaos, what's the big chiddush? He's saying all this that he created is all only a name, only a reflection of him. That means that all the higher worlds and the lower worlds, and the keiches, and the energy, and the power, and the energy manifest in them, and that brings them into being, is all just from your malchus, from your sovereignty, your kingship. Not from the essence of the melech himself, but only from his leadership, only from his being a king. See, so this is the distinction. He said, remember the beginning of the chapter. Now where the other ultra extreme is malchus, that's just giving you only from nothing from the Etzem HaMelech. Only that he is ruling over you, which is the external of the external. He's going to say it's rooted, but right now, that's where it is. The sound, by the way, is working all right there?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it. Behind the Cholel, okay. The Inyan HaMalucha, he's going to explain now, why is this not him himself? Because the Inyan HaMalucha, kingship, hu Inyan HaYisnasus. Kingship is Hisnasus. Hisnasus is being exalted, above, beyond. Shukeich Nivdal. It's a separate faculty. It's not like Chochmah Bina Das, which are revealed faculties. I reveal myself to you by Chochmah. If you reveal Malchus to someone else, all you're revealing is that I own you. That's maybe not a good word. I'm your authority. I'm your ruler. I'm sorry, I skipped. Like it says elsewhere, all the faculties like intelligence and emotions, they're revelations of the soul, and you could have them even when you're on your own. You could be sitting and conceiving ideas. You could have feelings. But leadership or exaltedness or authority, sovereignty. There's no revelation from the soul. Kim hu koyach levad. It's only a faculty. Sheyesh benefesh, that's inside the soul. Sheyesh bekoyach esnasis. It has the power to be sovereign, to be above, to be above others. There's no revelation in it. To say someone is exalted, someone is a sovereign, someone is an authority, has no revelation, no seichel, and no midas. He can rule with seichel and midas, but the malchus itself, its nasus, doesn't have intelligence or emotions. That means that it's a separate faculty from himself, from his personality, and a concealed one. And it's only possible on another. Even though he discussed earlier hisnasus atzmis, you could have fundamentally be hisnasus, but he's talking about emelech b'layam here. He's talking about malchus, the way it manifests. So it's not relevant here for now, because that's not malchus. You have a state like that within yourself. But to be malchus, to actually be a leader, you need who to lead. That's the whole concept, the whole idea of melucha, leadership, kingship, that it is exalted. This is not something that's according to logic. Only that he wants, willingly, he wants to rule. He wants to rule. That's from the king's perspective. And the same thing from the perspective of the subjects. The same thing is when you fulfill the will of the king. It's not because it makes sense. But the only thing is because he's the king, he's the authority, you have to follow his will. And what spreads out to the kingship, to the kingdom, the nations, is only the fact he's a king. A king dies, a new king comes in place, you have no idea who he is. He's the new king, he has a decree, you have to listen. A name is also separate and concealed. Like it says elsewhere, shem kved malchut. Shem kved malchut. Before we say let me just refer you back to chapter Shin Vav 306. That's where he began this. He says, "V'niyadu di inan maluch l'rak ispash shmei levad k'mei melech shmei nikra lehem." Shubchinas shem levad. Hari etzem hamelech einam ispash b'medina rak shmei levad. And there he goes on to explain how a name is external. Only the name spreads out. When you know a name of a king, King Alexander, King Nicholas, King this one, King that one, King Louis, it makes it you know nothing about his personality unless he wants you to know. All you know is he's an authority and you have to listen to him. So it's exactly like the name. So it's interesting, the Lashon, Melech, Shmei, Nikra Lehem, both Melech and Shmei are the same level. They only reflect an outside nivdal, something separate from the individual that has that name. So Melech and Shem are basically the same level. Now I say, Baruch Shem Kved Malchut. What is the meaning of Shem Kved Malchut here? The name of the honor of his kingship. So listen to this. Zeh ha'ara, v'ha'ara da ha'ara. V'ha'ara da ha'ara da ha'ara. Shem is ha'ara. Kved is ha'ara da ha'ara, reflection of reflection. And malchut, or maybe the other way around. Malchut is ha'ara. Kved malchut is ha'ara da ha'ara. And Shem Kved malchut is a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. Because they're all reflections. Shem, Kavod, and Malchus. V'hainu, shezeu helam achar helam. This means concealment after concealment. Shagama er bezeh. Even the revelation with it, and within this, hu b'chinas ha'ara, the ha'ara, the ha'ara. Is only a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. Do you understand what kind of ladder we have to climb here? That's where we are. And then this is going to explain Inyan. Next chapter is going to be Inyan Elikai Hamelech Aramimcha Elikai Hamelech. That's Elikai Hamelech that you elevate upward. Kitzer. Let me read the summary. Oh man, this was a long marathon, right? V'adugma mizeh Lamaila, an example for this above. Eir b'chinas gilei atzmus u'magala mitzias etzem. Eir is the gilei of atzmus, the essence, and reveals the Messias, the existence of the essence. Va'eir pnimi, and the eir pnimi, that's keiches nefesh, the inner energy, internalized energy, is a revelation from the essence. U'magala machshava na'lemes, and reveals the concealed thoughts, like he said, the 10 hidden spheres. The concealed thought of the vision of this of existence. He doesn't say that language inside, but he's referring to Esses Sfiras Agnuzis. It's clear. Shem b'derech klal b'chinas keilim. Name is the third level. In general, it's containers. Like the Maim, that it remains only its names after the air is removed. We can say this is their outer containers. That's where you can have removal. It's not like that. In the inner containers, you can't remove, so that's primis hakelim. And more specific detail, Chetzenis HaKeilim is the outer dimension of malchus, or shem is maybe the outer dimension of malchus. Tisnasus has a keich le'er, kamei kol hakeches. Exaltedness is a faculty, not an energy. It's not a revelation like all the other faculties. V'b'chinas levush, that's the level of garment. Shehalavush imi yesher she'ena meshana se'er. A garment, even though it does not change the energy, harihu ma'elim yesher. Nevertheless, it conceals more of it. That's why the creation, bringing the worlds into being, comes from malchus. And this is the level of Elikai HaMelech. So this is chapter 309, pages 6.